Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have the Waverly Hills Sanatorium. The Waverly Hills Sanatorium in Louisville, Kentucky is a former tuberculosis hospital that is said to be one of the most haunted places in the United States. The hospital was operational from 1910 to 1961 and housed thousands of patients suffering from tuberculosis during that time. The building's dark history, which includes reports of medical experiments, neglect, and mistreatment of patients, has led to numerous reports of paranormal activity. Visitors to the abandoned hospital have reported hearing strange noises, feeling cold spots, and even seeing ghostly apparitions, including the ghosts of former patients and nurses. The most famous ghostly sighting at Waverly Hills is that of a nurse who is said to have taken her own life in one of the hospital's rooms. Her ghost has been seen by many visitors and is said to be one of the most active spirits in the building. The sanatorium's eerie atmosphere and dark history continue to attract ghost hunters and paranormal enthusiasts from around the world. In our number 9 spot today, we have the Prince Edward Heights Mental Hospital. The Prince Edward Heights Mental Hospital, located in Prince Edward County in Ontario, was a psychiatric hospital that operated from 1913 to 1999. The hospital was known for its very controversial treatments and overcrowding, and there are many stories of patient mistreatment and harm. When the hospital closed, it left behind a dark and eerie legacy. The abandoned hospital has become a popular spot for urban explorers and paranormal investigators, with many reports of strange noises, unexplained occurrences, and ghostly apparitions. Some of the most commonly reported sightings include the ghostly figure of a former patient who is said to roam the halls, as well as the sound of footsteps, screams, which is horrifying, and other unexplained noises. Visitors to the hospital have reported feeling an overwhelming sense of sadness and despair, and many believe that the spirits of former patients still haunt the abandoned building today. In our number 8 spot today, we have Bannack. Bannack, Montana is a ghost town that was once a bustling gold mining community in the late 1800s. Today, however, the town is a popular destination for ghost hunters and urban explorers due to its reputation for being haunted. Visitors to Bannack have reported seeing ghostly apparitions, hearing unexplained noises, and feeling a very strong spiritual energy throughout the town. Some of the most commonly reported sightings include the ghostly figure of a former sheriff who was killed in the line of duty, as well as the ghost of a girl who is said to have died from illness in one of the town's homes. Others have reported feeling a strong sense of unease and fear, particularly in the town's abandoned schoolhouse. Very creepy. While the exact reason for Bannack's haunting remains a mystery, many believe that the town's violent past, which includes the numerous killings and deaths that occurred in its heyday, have left behind a lingering spiritual energy that continues to haunt the town today. In our number 7 spot today, we have the CPR Hospital. The abandoned CPR Hospital is located in Saskatchewan, here in Canada, my home province, and it's a different kind of CPR than you might be thinking. In its past life, this hospital was once a hospital for Canadian Pacific Railway workers in the early 1900s. The hospital closed its doors in the 1980s and has been abandoned ever since. Today, the hospital is a popular spot for ghost hunters and urban explorers, with many reports of strange occurrences and ghostly sightings. Visitors to the hospital have reported hearing strange noises, including the sound of footsteps and the disembodied voices of former patients and staff. Some have even reported seeing apparitions, including the ghostly figure of a former nurse who died in a tragic accident. The hospital's haunting history is thought to be linked to the many tragedies that occurred during its time as a working hospital. Whether or not the hospital is truly haunted remains up for debate, but its eerie atmosphere and mysterious past continue to draw visitors from far and wide. In our number 6 spot today, we have Bodie. Bodie, which is located in California, is a former mining town that is now a ghost town and state historic park. The town was established in 1859 and was the home to a thriving gold rush community until the early 1900s, when the mines began to close. The town's isolation and very harsh living conditions made it a very difficult place to live, and it was eventually abandoned. The remaining buildings, which have been preserved in a state of quote arrested decay, make it a popular spot for tourists and ghost hunters alike. Visitors to Bodie have reported hearing strange noises, feeling cold spots, and even, of course, seeing a ghost or two. Some believe that the town's violent history, which includes shootouts and executions, has caused it to become haunted. Others believe that the spirits of former residents still roam the streets, unable to let go of their former lives. Bodie's haunting history and well-preserved buildings make it a fascinating but very eerie place to visit. In our number 5 spot today, we have Val Jalbert. The abandoned village of Val Jalbert, located in Quebec, Canada, was once a thriving pulp mill town in the 1920s. However, after the mill closed in the 1940s, the town was abandoned and left to decay. Today, the village is a very popular spot for tourists and explorers, with many reports of strange occurrences and ghostly sightings. Visitors to Val Jalbert have reported feeling a sense of unease and hearing strange noises, including whispers and footsteps. I think that whispers is like the worst. No, voices is one thing, whispers is worse. There are also rumors of a ghostly figure that haunts the village's church, as well as other apparitions that have been spotted throughout the abandoned buildings. Many people believe that the town's tragic history, which includes a devastating fire and several deaths, has caused it to become haunted. The abandoned village of Val Jalbert is a fascinating and eerie place to visit, and its haunting history and ghostly tales continue to intrigue visitors from around the world. In our number 4 spot today, we have Six Flags New Orleans. Six Flags New Orleans, of course located in Louisiana, was once a very popular theme park that closed its doors after Hurricane Katrina devastated the area in 2005. Since then, the park has been abandoned and left to decay, leading many to believe that it is haunted. Visitors to the park have reported hearing strange noises and seeing ghostly apparitions, including the ghost of a former employee who is said to have died on the property. There are also rumors of ghostly figures that can be seen walking through the abandoned park at night. While many of the park's attractions have been dismantled at this point, some of the structures still stand, including the abandoned roller coasters and the very creepy, dilapidated clown head that once served as the park's entrance. The park's haunting history and eerie atmosphere have made it a very popular destination for urban explorers and ghost hunters alike. However, visitors are warned that the property is unsafe and trespassing is strictly prohibited. In our number 3 spot today, we have the Central Experimental Farm. Located in Ottawa, Ontario, this farm is a research facility that has been in operation since 1886. However, despite its scientific purpose, the farm has a reputation for being haunted. Visitors to the farm have reported seeing ghosts, hearing unexplained noises, and also feeling an eerie presence. Some of the most commonly reported sightings include the ghostly figure of a former farm worker who died on the property, as well as the ghost of a woman who is said to haunt the farm's historic farmhouse. There are also rumors of a ghostly horse-drawn carriage that can be seen driving through the farm's fields. While the exact reason for the farm's haunting remains unknown, many believe that the many tragedies that have occurred on the property, including accidents and deaths, have left behind a lingering spiritual energy. The Central Experimental Farm is a fascinating and eerie location, and its haunting history and the ghostly tales surrounding it continue to intrigue visitors from around the world. In our number 2 spot today, we have Centralia. Located in Pennsylvania, this town is often referred to as one of the gateways to hell. That is due to the fire that spread in an underground coal mine underneath the town in 1962. The fire, which is believed to have been started by a trash fire that spread to the coal seam, has been burning for over 60 years and has caused the town to be evacuated due to toxic fumes and the risk of collapse. As the fire still blazes underground, it causes the smoke and poisonous gases to rise up from the ground, not only causing an eerie appearance, but also a very serious health hazard. The temperatures can be so hot in the area that one guy's backyard was measured at 626 degrees Fahrenheit. Sometimes the fire will also burn through supports underground, which in the end turns into a sinkhole. This has caused pets, wildlife, and residents to unsuspectingly get swallowed up into the hole. In 1984, the US government ordered a total evacuation of the town, but a handful of residents refused to leave and even went to court over the right to stay in the town for as long as they live. The abandoned buildings, cracked and buckled roads, and just eerie silence makes it a popular spot for urban explorers and paranormal enthusiasts. Some believe that the town's dark history combined with the ongoing fire has caused the area to become haunted. Finally, in our number 1 spot today, we have the Eastern State Penitentiary. The Eastern State Penitentiary, located located in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, is known for its haunting history. The prison was operational for almost 150 years from 1829 until its closure in 1971, and it was once the home to some of the country's most notorious criminals, including Al Capone. The prison's imposing Gothic architecture and innovative design, which placed an emphasis on solitary confinement and rehabilitation, made it one of the most famous prisons of its time. However, its harsh conditions and notorious history also make it a popular spot for ghost hunters and people who love all things paranormal. Visitors have reported hearing strange noises, feeling cold spots, and even seeing ghosts, including the ghost of a guard who was killed by an inmate. Some even claim to have been touched or pushed by unseen forces. The prison's eerie atmosphere and dark history continue to fascinate as well as frighten visitors to this day.
Starting us off at number 10 is Hawthorne Plaza Shopping Center. Located in Hawthorne, California, just outside of LA, this mall opened in 1977 and was once a booming metropolis filled with eager customers day and night. However, over time, as the economy shifted and crime rates began to rise in the area, the once bustling shopping center began slowly deteriorating and was forced to permanently shut its doors in 1999. Over the years, there were a few attempts to revamp and reopen, but none have proven fruitful. In fact, the owner of the mall was recently sent to prison for 4 years after bribing an LA County official in a scheme to sign a lucrative tenancy agreement. Nowadays, the mall is occasionally used by Hollywood for film sets, but generally speaking, it spends most of its time abandoned and rotting from the inside out. Early on, after the closure, looters stripped the mall of just about everything, including handrails, windows, and doors. However, what wasn't taken was destroyed, and the remaining infrastructure barely stands, either smashed, broken, or shattered to bits. Most recently, in 2022, the mall was even more damaged after an arson attack believed to have been committed by someone squatting inside the abandoned mall. So, overall, not a place you want to spend your afternoon. Next up at number 9, the Acropolis. Once a popular shopping center in a suburb of Mexico City during the late 80s, this ancient Greek-inspired shopping center quickly declined by the end of the 90s and has sat eerily abandoned ever since. Now, obviously, all the malls on this list are spooky, but what makes this one different from the rest, as I already mentioned, is that it was originally designed as a tribute to ancient Greek architecture, and as such is filled with towering columns that were designed to appear like ruins prior to this place even becoming an abandoned lot. I mean, you have to admit, there is something quite haunting about a place deliberately built becoming a decaying ruin itself, and that mixed with the several rumors that this place is haunted is enough reason to leave it alone. Next up at number 8, Northland Village Mall. Located in Calgary, Alberta, this mall is the most recent on the list to have shut down, only closing officially in 2021. It opened back in 1971 and did quite well for itself, even expanding in 2005. However, by 2021, due to a multitude of reasons, the mall shut down and there were even talks of demolition. That was until the hit show The Last of Us got their hands on it and used it for their abandoned mall episode. I don't know about you guys, but I am a huge fan of that show, so if there was one mall on this list that would make me just a little curious to visit, it would be this one. However, it is still a closed down mall, so, you know, probably not the best call. Plus, there are some rumors that it could be haunted, and if the ghosts are anything like the monsters from The Last of Us, then it is definitely the last place you will catch me. Coming in at number 7, Metro North Mall. Located in the Kansas City area, Metro North Mall opened its doors to the public in 1976, becoming not only the second largest shopping center in the area, but also the only enclosed mall north of the Missouri River. So you'd think there wouldn't be much competition. However, despite their size, just like other malls all around the world, it was the fall of their major anchor stores that forced them to throw in the towel in in 2014. Since then, the mall has fallen destitute, with molding walls, warped flooring, and broken glass, making it resemble more of a haunted sanatorium than a shopping center. In fact, according to photojournalist Seth Lawless, who snuck inside, it is by far the creepiest place they have ever stepped foot in. So unless you are looking to inhale black mold or encounter some kind of evil spirit, this is not the place for you. Next up at number 6, Randall Park Mall. Once the largest mall in the entire world, the Randall Park Mall opened in 1976 in North Randall, Ohio, with the dream of creating a city within a city. Now, while that is certainly a grand ambition, I would say they achieved it for some time. Inside there was, of course, tons of stores, but also apartments and performing arts centers, or you could spend an afternoon at one of their movie theaters inside. However, just like the other malls on this list, as the years went by, the large box stores like Macy's, Sears, and Higbee's began leaving, and then after a suspected shoplifter was killed by an off-duty officer, the decline of Randall Park became inevitable. By 2009, the mall was shut down for good, but that only made it easier for vandals and looters to sneak in and turn the once beloved building into a rotting mess. Plus, due to the hasty closures in the months following Christmas, the decrepit stores are filled with eerie and falling apart toys and decorations, which only adds to the haunting feeling. Coming in at number 5, Old Town Mall. Located in Baltimore, Maryland, this 200-year-old outdoor mall has a long, tumultuous history and is for sure not a mall you'd want to poke around in at night. Originally named the Bel Air Market, Old Town Mall was built way back in 1818 and was originally intended to serve as a relief farmers market to aid in the increasing commercial operations in the area. Now, at first, it did exactly as it was designed to do and boosted business. However, when the post-war era began pushing families out to the suburbs, the area drastically declined in population, lost many of its customers, and soon became one of the poorest areas of the city. Sadly, this new demographic did not have the money to spend at the shops like the previous residents, and so stores were forced to either close or revamp to accommodate the new clientele. Despite a few attempts to revamp the area and bring it back to life, by the 1980s the area was worse than ever, having deteriorated into a dangerous wasteland surrounded by crumbling buildings and a rising violent crime rate. Today it stands a ghost town said to be filled with spirits of those who've died here, and it is definitely not somewhere you want to mess with. Next up at number 4, Rolling Acres Mall. Found in Akron, Ohio, the Rolling Acres Mall has a long list of incidents, both pre- and post-shutdown, that definitely make it one of the scariest buildings on this list. Built in 1975, the mall opened with only 21 stores, but eventually expanded to 150 by 1995. The big box stores like JCPenney, Macy's, and Target were only a few of the things that drew the public in. And it honestly had quite a few good years, until it didn't anymore. In 1986, the field behind the mall was the site of a brutal double homicide, and that, coupled with the rise of theft in the area, began to taint its reputation. Soon, customers began finding new shopping centers to go to, and without the usual cash flow, shops began dropping left, right, and center. Eventually, by 2008, the mall shut down for good and has since become a ghost town. To make matters worse, after the close, apparently another dead victim was found here. And if that wasn't enough to scare people off, a man was electrocuted and fatally caught fire after attempting to steal some copper wiring that was inside the building. After the increasingly dangerous incidents, the mayor made a statement urging citizens to please keep out and away from the deteriorating building, and even though it was demolished in 2017, some say that the souls who died here haunt the grounds, terrorizing anyone who steps foot on the property. Coming in at number 3, Dixie Square Mall. Located in Harvey, Illinois, this mall was only operational for a short 12 years between 1966 to 1978, and in the years following its closure developed quite a sour reputation. Shortly following the shutdown in 1979, the abandoned site was briefly used as a temporary school, and in 1980 it became known as the site of the famous mall car chase scene in Blues Brothers. However, from there, things took a corner. During the 80s and 90s, Dixie Square was featured in multiple national news reports due to high levels of trespassing, vandalism, and theft. And sadly, the crime only worsened as the years went on. However, unable to pay for the repairs that would keep vandals out of the crumbling shopping center, the city was pretty much forced to just watch as the building was torn apart scrap by scrap. Every window has been smashed open, the trademark Dixie sign was stolen along with any remotely salvageable materials, and the ruins caught fire twice. Plus, if that wasn't enough cause for concern, this mall was also the site of a brutal homicide. So yeah, it's definitely not a building you are able to enter. Coming in at number 2, Gwinnett Place Mall. Probably the most famous on this list, Gwinnett Place Mall, located in Duluth, Georgia, is a mall that has likely appeared on your TV and you didn't even know it. So its big claim to fame is that it was used as the filming location for the Star Court Mall in Stranger Things Season 3. However, despite this ghost mall still has a very dark reputation. When it first opened in 1984, the mall had big name stores like Macy's and Sears, but even so faced stiff competition and lost a lot of its customer base after the Mall of Georgia opened in 1999, followed by Sugarloaf Mills in 2001. The once booming center began putting up storefronts for lease, and eventually by 2013, things became so destitute that the previous owners lost the mall to foreclosure. However, this wasn't the end just yet. In 2017, the body of a 19-year-old woman was found in the back room of the food court, having somehow gone unnoticed for weeks. And the following year, several employees were robbed and assaulted in the parking lot. The next few years, the parking lots outside turned into a hub for escorts, drug running, and vandalism, among many other things. Eventually, it became a ghost town, and today it is absolutely somewhere you want to steer clear of. Last up in our number 1 spot is New World Mall. Some malls closed due to financial problems, some due to crime. However, what sent the New World Mall in Bangkok into retirement is one of the wildest reasons of them all. New World Mall opened its doors to the public in 1983 and was once a major community hub. However, things took a turn in 1994 when the Bangkok Metropolitan Administration took the owner to court after they illegally added 7 floors to the building. As it turns out, the court ruled that the new floors violated safety standards, and so by 1997, they ruled that floors 5 through 11 had to be removed. However, in 2004, several years after the ruling, a fire caused the roof to tragically cave in, and a piece of the building struck a bystander, killing them instantly, and shut down the mall forever. Now, you would think that the bad news stopped there, but due to the rainfall that could now enter the building, the bottom floor flooded entirely and became infested with mosquitoes. Trying to make lemonade out of the situation, residents began introducing various species of fish in the hopes that they would eat the mosquito larvae and keep the situation at bay. Now, to be fair, it did kind of work. However, in 2015, the fish and mosquito-infested mall lake was drained. That being said, it is an absolute death trap of a building and definitely not somewhere the public has access to visit.
Starting at number 10, we have a potential ghost sighting from Masterbuck's YouTube. For his Halloween special, Masterbuck decided to check out a house that his friends said had been abandoned for a month. According to his source, the construction workers assigned to the house refused to return after several injuries occurred mysteriously on site. The house has been sitting empty for a month, and so Masterbuck decided, you know, why don't I take this opportunity to check it out and see if I get scared. What happens next is something no one really really expected. For the first bit of the video, it seems to be more entertaining than actually scary, but until 5.5 minutes in, he freezes, and I could hear breathing like right next to the camera, which was really far away from him. He immediately gets spooked and leaves the premises. Did you hear what he heard? Let us know in the comments. So coming in at number 9, we have this video from YouTube Gem Parks. Now, okay, this video kind of made me want to cry because when I first saw it, I was like, what is that? But I have to admit, it really doesn't take much. It's unclear as to where exactly this property is, but this explorer and YouTuber seems to have encountered something strange. About a minute into this video, you can see on the right-hand corner in the doorway some small kind of creature peering around the corner. But when he turns the corner, there's nothing there, not even some object that could have been resembled like a broomstick or a coat hanger or anything like that. Then at around 2 minutes in, some kind of shadowy woman is shown tucking in the corner. Could it be the same creature we saw earlier or something else? Now, you may take a chance and go exploring an abandoned house at night in the hopes you'll find a ghost, but unfortunately you get out unscathed, or so you think. Coming in at number 8, this cameraman thought he missed out on a ghostly encounter while exploring this abandoned building. He was wrong. YouTuber Derelict Mafia went out to explore the abandoned Westboro State Hospital to see who he might meet. When he got back home to review the footage, he noticed these 2 bright eyes following him. If you watched the video the first time, you could totally miss it, so I completely understand his oversight the first time. At first, I considered whether they could have been a cat or nocturnal animal of some kind whose eyes tend to glow in the dark, but could one be hanging from something on the ceiling? But the eyes appear to be almost too centered in the hallway, as if instead they belong to a person just standing there. We can't, of course, be sure. Now, this next one's for all my fairy folklore fans. It's not a ghost this time. Surprise! Coming in at number 7, we have a potential fairy encounter. Now, for those who think fairies are mostly the friendly kind that live in Neverland, may I introduce you to the folklore of the Fae. Beings of great power that delight in trapping lost travelers in winding forests through tricks and pranks. Many fear coming across them, but apparently not YouTuber Erwin Sanders. While exploring this otherwise empty forest, Erwin describes this sighting as the first real fairy encounter. Now, right away, Erwin seems like the kind of person who would attract magical forest creatures. I mean, look at him, he's literally the sweetest person. So it's almost no surprise when a tiny humanoid-like creature begins spying on him. If you look carefully, you can see the fairy begin to pop his head over the brush right over his left shoulder. Now, it's unclear which forest he's in specifically, but apparently according to fairy lore, fairies could be anywhere waiting, even in your own backyard. So next time you go wandering the woods, abandoned or otherwise, think about whether you are really alone. Coming in at number 6, we have the murder room. YouTubers Sam and Colby return to an abandoned warehouse to return a box that they stole previously from a place in the warehouse called the murder room. When they enter, the YouTubers report feeling heavier and brought up memories of the last time they were there. Doors slammed, birds attacked them, you know, all other strange happenings. But then, around 14 minutes in, they begin to hear chanting approaching the building. It's really creepy. It's this like ethereal church chanting. The chanting is eerie, and the explorers report they could see the group beginning to set up some kind of ritual? What? Terrified, the YouTubers then try to make their escape, hoping to remain unnoticed. As they exit the building around 18 minutes in, they hear a massive bang. Sending them bolting away from the house. Who knows what could have happened? They definitely didn't run into any ghosts, but perhaps they ran into something a lot more sinister. But honestly, I'm kinda glad we didn't find out what. Number 5! YouTubers exploring with fighters found something so shocking they had to call the police. Coming in at number 5, we have this video which shows a chilling discovery. This is the second time these urban explorers have visited this property and returned after so much hype from their first video after all of the strange occurrences they experienced last time. They reportedly found a Santa doll through a hole in the wall and messages from spirits in the house that potentially showed evidence of demons. Now, in this video, they've returned in order to see if the messages were true, and now, here's where it gets creepy. The further they dug into the wall, they eventually found something that shook them to their core.
Especially, you know, after the Romania series, I didn't think anything could top that, but I think this will. Whoa!
Wait. Don't touch that. This is now a crime scene.
Human remains. They called the police immediately and left the scene after speaking to them. This video is surreal in what they didn't actually come across a ghost. Can anyone deny that they might have been sent messages to find whoever was left behind the wall? Coming in at number 4, we have a ghost sighting filmed by YouTuber Freaktography. In March 2016, while exploring an abandoned house in Ontario, Canada, Freaktography caught something that can't quite be explained. When I first watched this video, I totally missed it, but after it slowed down, boggled. Now at first this video didn't seem very creepy to me, but then once I saw it, it sent my mind whirling. Did you see it? As the video slows, a translucent shape flows past the screen in a blur. I'm not sure what could explain such a strange shape. Could it be dust or a bug even? But one thing is for sure is that even after watching it several times, whatever it is, it's not easy to explain. So now we're reaching the top 3, and before we do, I just want to remind you guys to give us a like and a follow and a subscribe and a comment and tell us that you love us in some way or shape or form, because it really means a lot to us. And just to let you know, as we go to the top 3, I had to touch on these 3 places that are just so creepy, that have so much of following that they're guaranteed to be haunted, and you're guaranteed to experience something when you visit. So check out. Next up, at number 3, we have Poveglia Island. Again, this is another place where you are guaranteed to encounter something you'll never forget. Poveglia Island in Italy used to be a hospital for all those with the bubonic plague, and that over 160,000 corpses were burned to ashes and thrown into mass graves. After that, it became a mental asylum, apparently ran by a malicious doctor who performed experiments on his patients. He reportedly was driven mad by the ghosts of those he tortured, and he threw himself off the clock tower. Unfortunately, the island has been shut down, and anyone who trespasses can receive criminal fines, but that doesn't stop people from taking a boat and getting as close as possible. Those who do report hearing blood-curdling screams, heartbreaking laments, and other strange noises. Some even hear the bell toll from across the bay, though it was removed years before. But the strangest thing is that scientists have recorded a powerful electromagnetic field surrounding the entire island, but there's no electricity. Coming in at number 2, we have the abandoned fort of Bangalore, India. This is said to be the most haunted place in all of India and is strongly believed to be cursed. This historical ruin has accumulated so many stories that no one is allowed to enter the fort at night for fear that they may never come back. 2 people have gone missing for just that, and though a third was recovered, they mysteriously died on their way to the hospital in a sudden crash. Another group of teens broke the rules and reported seeing a young boy sitting alone in a room, except there were no accessible doors or windows to access it, so how did he get inside? As for why the place is cursed, there are 2 prominent stories. One involves a magician who tried to trick a princess he loved, though went horribly wrong, and another involving a guru who cursed the entire town where the fortress resides. But one thing's for sure, if you do ever dare to visit, don't trespass at night. Coming in at number 1, we have a poltergeist house in the Isle of Wight. Year after year, well except maybe this one, tourists flock to the historic lands of the UK, and many ghost hunters make sure to visit the Isle of Wight, also known as the Isle of Fright. Known by tourists as a picturesque place of beauty for its near untouched green landscape, but the lore surrounding it has dozens of people claiming to have seen and heard things they will never forget. One such place that has people running for the hills is the Poltergeist House, a grand picturesque mansion that sadly remains a shell of what it once was. It was destroyed during World War II, but many have reported sightings of ghost carriages, monks, and strange lights filling the house. As there are too many encounters to count, this site is considered the most haunted place on the Isle of Wight, or Fright, as most call it.
Starting off this countdown, we have the military hospital. Located in Belitz, Germany, this creepy hospital was built in the early 20th century to treat patients with tuberculosis. Then during the World Wars, it was used as a military hospital. During World War II, it was used for experiments on prisoners led by a certain German group. I can't say their name on here. In fact, this hospital once treated Hitler for a thigh injury he got during battle. Then towards the end of the war, Soviet forces took over the hospital and made it into a big military treatment center until 1994 when it was abandoned. Now, due to its haunting past, no one wants to visit it. Some say you can hear the screams and cries from the tortured prisoners. Others say Hitler's ghost roams the area. Coming in at number 9, we have Weyburn Mental Hospital. Located in Saskatchewan, Saskatchewan, Canada, the Weyburn Mental Hospital opened its doors in 1921. From there, it was given the name Canada's most notorious psychiatric institution. From 1953 to 1960, the hospital dealt with thousands of alcoholics, and they treated them by giving them LSD in a controlled environment. Most of the time, that didn't work. This hospital also conducted a number of lobotomies and used electric shock therapy. In 1971, the hospital closed down and the patients were transferred to other institutions. Coming in at number 8, we have Hearn Generating Station. Located in Toronto, Ontario, the Hearn Generating Station is an abandoned power plant. Now, it's a pretty impressive building, and the city is looking to repurpose the building somehow, but they just don't have plans yet. The only thing is that this 400,000 square foot plant is quite dangerous. After it was abandoned, the space was used for a number of events, but a couple of years ago, the city's fire department deemed it an unsafe venue. It's also the site of a very tragic accident. On June 15th, 2008, urban explorer Ryan Nenes entered the building and fell 3 stories into a coal chute. He was trapped in there for 3 hours, pinned under a steel plate. He sadly died 2 days later in the hospital. Moving on at number 7, we have Fort Sand. This is said to be one of the most haunted places in Canada. So from 1917 to 1971, this building was a medical center to help treat patients with tuberculosis. It said that they had more than 350 patients at any given time. Sadly, a lot of patients died there in isolation. Then from 1967 to 1991, the building was converted into a summer school of the arts, and later it was a resort village that held conferences until 2014. And of course, like many other abandoned buildings on this list, it's said to be haunted by the ghosts of the past. Sadly, in 2017 it was demolished, but that doesn't mean the ghosts are gone. Making our way down the list at number 6, we have the Holy Family Orphanage. Located in Michigan, the Holy Family Orphanage is said to be extremely haunted, which is quite ironic because of its name. The orphanage opened in 1915 and was meant to be a safe haven for orphans, but sadly this wasn't the case. Apparently they were badly mistreated, they had cruel punishments, and some even died as a result. For example, there's a story about one orphan and a snowstorm. Apparently one day she went out in a snowstorm, but the weather was so bad that she got lost. One of the nuns rescued her, but the poor girl developed pneumonia and she passed away a few days later. But the nuns kept her body and actually put it on display in the lobby. This was meant as a warning to all, like, if you disobey the nuns, then this could happen to you. Nowadays, people say that it's haunted by the souls who have died there. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with Hotel de Salto. Hotel de Salto first opened in 1928 and was very popular among tourists, as it was close to the Tequendama Falls. However, as years went on, it was discovered that the water at the falls was contaminated. Tourists gradually lost interest in the area, and the hotel wasn't getting the numbers like they used to. In the early 1900s, the hotel was abandoned. Now it's said to be a very, very haunted place. Apparently, over the years, a lot of people committed suicide at the hotel and near the falls. So people are convinced that the area is cursed and that something there will force you to take your own life. In our 4th spot, we have Crookham Court Manor School. Located in Berkshire, New York, this school has a very disturbing past. Abandoned for more than 20 years, if you enter the school, you will see unfinished homework assignments and books scattered all around. Desks are still in rows though, waiting for the students to return. But they won't be. This school was shut down in 1989 after it was revealed that the students were being abused by the teachers. 4 staff members have since been jailed. If you wander this building knowing what terrible acts were committed there, it's gonna hit you pretty hard. In fact, one urban explorer and photographer said, and I quote, "I felt emotional as I walked around. I wondered what terrible things had happened in the rooms, which are now eerily empty. It's horrible to even imagine." In our 3rd spot, we have Papacy Prison. Before becoming a prison, this building was a sea fortress in the 1840s. Then from 1919 to 2002, it was a penitentiary used by the Soviets. And it had a pretty notorious reputation as being one of the scariest places in Estonia. If you enter the building, you will find Soviet telephone books, old posters, and a creepy hospital room with sharp medical tools and blood-stained blankets. In fact, this operation room is said to be the most haunted location in the whole building. The room is filled with odd-looking machines and rusted beds with straps on them that are blood-stained. Some have felt like they were being watched while touring this abandoned building. Others have felt as if someone was lurking right behind them, following their every move. What's worse is that there is an execution room where the prisoners would kneel down with their heads against the wall. Then they would be shot at the back of the head. The bullet holes are still there in the wall. In our second spot, we have Eastern State Penitentiary. Built in 1829, Eastern State Penitentiary is known for housing some of the biggest criminals, such as Al Capone. Now, the conditions in this prison weren't the best. Prisoners were kept in complete solitude. They could see no one else besides the guards. Whenever they could leave their cells, guards would cover their heads so they couldn't see anyone else and no one could see them. That alone would drive you insane. But it didn't stop there. The guards would often torture the inmates by soaking them in cold water and then letting them dry outside during the winter time. The prison closed in 1971, and now apparently the ghosts of the prisoners haunt the walls, seeking revenge on the guards. And in our number one spot, we have St. George Church. Located in Lukova, Czech Republic, this church was first built in the 14th century. It was a pretty popular church, but was abandoned in the 1960s after a roof collapsed during a funeral. People took this as a bad omen, and since then it has been abandoned. Legend goes that the church is haunted, so an artist turned the church into an exhibition based on that. Inside the church, there are now 32 life-sized cloak statues of ghosts with their heads bowing down. It's terrifying looking. This is the scariest one on the list just because of those statues. They're putting up creepy statues of ghosts in an already haunted place? No thank you. I could see one of those things just lifting their head and then chasing after me. So starting off this countdown, we have Ordos Kangbashi, and I apologize, I know I'm going to butcher every single name on this list. Please give me a break, okay? I suck at pronunciations, especially cities that I've never been to. So this is the most famous ghost city in China and the world's largest ghost town. Located in Inner Mongolia, Ordos Kangbashi was meant to be a modern city with a new style of architecture. There's tons of unique looking buildings, large stadiums, theaters, and big public spaces. It was actually called the Dubai of China. Just one problem: it lacks people. The city was built for 300,000 people, but only 70,000 ended up moving to live there. Then, after running out of funding, construction on the city just stopped. Nowadays, there are tons of unfinished and empty apartments. Now it's called a modern ghost town, a stillborn city, and a failed utopia. If you travel the area, it is beautiful with its buildings, but the silence and the emptiness is very frightening. Not only that, but beneath the streets is a whole underground parking system, which will give you nightmares. It looks like a giant underground doomsday bunker. Moving on to number 9, we have Tianducheng. The Tianducheng is known for being a copycat of Paris. Seriously, it was designed to look like as if you are in Paris. The streets look just like the ones in France, and they have a replica of the Medici fountain. To top it all off, they even have their very own Eiffel Tower. But sadly, it wasn't as successful as they hoped, and now many of the buildings remain deserted. Now people think of it as a creepy version of France. Many visitors feel uneasy walking down the streets. The once beautiful city now has stores with cracked and worn paint, and has a bunch of creepy statues with eyes that look like they follow your every move. In fact, some stores are nothing more than walls that they painted to look like stores and storefronts with like windows with merchandise in the windows. Kinda weird, kinda creepy. In our 8th spot, we have Chang'an. On May 20th, 2011, the construction of the city of Chang'an in Yunnan was approved. 100,000 new apartments were built, but they have no occupants. You have enormous office buildings with no workers, big streets with no cars. Now it's considered one of the largest ghost towns in Asia. What's creepy is that sections of the city remain uncompleted. There are dirt roads all trashed with rubble. It literally looks like an apocalyptic area. It's very creepy, especially when it's dead silent and all you can hear is the wind whistling through the abandoned buildings. Coming in at number 7, we have the Guangdong province. The Guangdong province is home to tons of abandoned villages, but the one I want to talk about is the village of Dakito. This village is known to have a ghostly presence, and it's said to be haunted, but there's hardly any information out there on it. So I don't know what exactly happened there or why it's abandoned, but all I know is that something sinister haunts the land. Coming in at number 6, we have Ujiapu. Referred to as China's Manhattan, Ujiapu was created to be a center for world trade and finance, but more than 22 buildings are still unfinished, and there are no citizens working inside the tall buildings. A cab driver described the area as the following: there's just nobody there. It's like having a good-for-nothing child. His words, not mine. He says at night, the area is 10 times creepier, with brightly lit roads, but no one driving on them. He claims that one time he was driving down the road when he saw headlights coming towards him, as if a car was going to crash into him head on. He braced for impact, but nothing hit him. When he looked back, there was nothing there. So what were the lights that he saw? I have no idea, but he's terrified of the area and thinks it's haunted. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with Dandong New District. The new district of Dandong features a giant shopping mall, huge government offices, a basketball stadium, and 60 plus apartment towers. There's even a huge Ferris wheel. It seems like a really impressive city until you actually go there and find that it's all just for show. The Ferris wheel doesn't even work, and no one lives there. So this city is actually part of a border zone between North Korea. The Globe and Mail states, and I quote, "Part of the lure of the Dandong New District was supposed to be its proximity to Sinuiju, the North Korean city on the opposite bank of the narrow Yalu River. But since it's so close, citizens were worried that they would be exposed to possible radiation from North Korea's nuclear tests. So now, no one really wants to live there." Making our way down the list, number 4, we have Nanhui New City. Nanhui New City, formerly named Lingang New City, is located 60 kilometers southeast of downtown Shanghai. The city was said to become a mini Hong Kong, but as we know, that didn't happen. The construction of the city began in 2003 and was said to be done by 2020, but it's nowhere near completion, and some believe that it will never be completed. In fact, 8 university campuses were built, and it could house more than 800,000 people, but now it remains abandoned. In fact, it's said that in order to build the city, one homeless man's shelter was destroyed in the process, and with nowhere to go, he committed suicide. People believe that he now will haunt the area and whoever decides to live there. In our 3rd spot, we have Cafe Dien. Construction of the city began in the early 2000s. It was planned to be the solution to Beijing's pollution problem. It was going to be an eco-city, but the project was abandoned due to lack of government support and funding issues. It was built to hold millions of people, but only a few thousand live there. You got locked up abandoned hotels and unfinished buildings. One woman said, and I quote, "I was very sad when I saw how underdeveloped it was. I went back crying all the way." But due to the city's high amount of abandoned buildings, it attracts a lot of urban explorers. But sadly, a group of explorers died after a structural collapse in one of the buildings they were exploring. In our 2nd spot, we have Lanzhou New Area. Built in a sandy plateau area, some parts of the city literally look like you're in a desert. So when you first enter the city, you'll see a huge sign that says, "Welcome to the Oasis City," but it looks nothing like an oasis. The welcome sign looks like it leads to nothing. It looks very barren. But in some areas of the city, you will notice that there are replicas of the Parthenon and the Great Sphinx of Giza. And that's pretty cool, but they're still under construction. So in order to create this city, hundreds of sandy hills were bulldozed down, and some mountains were even cut down. There are some buildings, but it mainly looks like a huge sandstorm just took place and then engulfed most of the buildings. Now, some people do live there, but it's still considered a ghost city as it houses far less than anticipated. Legend goes that the ancient Egyptian god Khafre is cursing this area for having a replica of his Sphinx. Most researchers believe that the Sphinx was meant to act as a guardian for the pharaoh Khafre, whose pyramid is located beside it. So now, Khafre is mad and has made sure that the construction will never be completed and that it will never be a successful city. And in our number 1 spot we have Mexico Lake City. I know for sure I pronounced that name wrong. The construction of the city began in 2007 and it was meant to be a highly sustainable city. The whole thing was designed to be eco-friendly and low carbon dependent. The project was described as this, and I quote, "Water is the primary element of design and acts as the heart and center of the master plan." They were going to have a huge lake that was going to be the main source of transportation. So people were going to be boating around, which was said to reduce pollution. And not only that, there were going to be canals that connected you to around the city. They expected a population of 206,000 people living there, but it was never really completed and is now an abandoned project. I mean, it was a pretty cool idea, but I don't know how many people are going to just love boating around instead of driving. Now, the city looks pretty beautiful and not creepy at all. Then again, rumor has it that the lake it was built near has been the site of multiple drownings. But of course, the government thought that was going to be bad news for their city, so they did whatever they could to try and hide the past. Starting off this countdown, we have Six Flags in New Orleans. Six Flags is a huge American park corporation with parks all throughout the US. But sadly, the one in New Orleans has been abandoned. The park opened in 2000 but only lasted a couple of years. In 2005, Hurricane Katrina hit the park and the property flooded. The whole park was submerged in 7 feet of water for about a month. The exposure to this water damaged a lot of rides, making them unsafe. There wasn't enough funding for all the repairs that they had to do, so the park was closed. Now it's only used as a film set. In fact, the film Deepwater Horizon and Jurassic World have both filmed scenes there. Moving on at number 9, we have the Land of Oz. Located in North Carolina, the Land of Oz was a park centered around the Wizard of Oz. It first opened in 1970 and featured a beautiful yellow brick road and had an emerald city, and even had one of the dresses Judy Garland wore in the film. However, the buzz surrounding this place quickly died down. Then in 1975, there was a fire at the park that destroyed the Emerald City, and then Judy Garland's dress was stolen. By 1980, the entire park was abandoned. Now you can only visit the park once a year as part of a Halloween attraction. In our 8th spot, we have Jungle Habitat. Located in West Milford, New Jersey, the Jungle Habitat amusement park allowed guests to get up close and personal with the animals. You could do this by walking or driving through a specific area. The drive-through area was supposed to feel like you were on a safari adventure. This amusement park had 70 different species of animals from all around the world. However, there were constant rumors of animals escaping from the park or illegal poachings happening. This, of course, damaged its reputation, but that's not what caused the park to close. It said that Warner Bros. Wanted to make the park bigger, but the residents of the area were not too fond of this idea. In 1976, the park shut down and all the animals were rehomed. However, after the park was closed, frozen remains of several animals were found on the premises, making them wonder what went on there behind the scenes. Coming in at number 7, we have River Country. I've talked about this park before in another video, but I feel like it needs to be mentioned again. River Country Park opened in 1976 and was the first water park at Walt Disney World. The park was designed to look like a swimming hole. It had fake mountains with water slides, and it was a good idea, except a lot of bad things ended up occurring at the park. In 1980, a boy was killed at the park after getting a bacterial infection from one of the pool's water. The bacteria ended up attacking his brain and nervous system, which then killed him. Then, just 2 years later, another guest passed away at the park. Sadly, this guest drowned after coming off one of the water slides. Then in 1989, another drowning occurred. The park closed its doors in November of 2001, but most of it is still there, and it makes for a good place for urban explorers to check out, especially since it's now considered haunted by the souls of the people who died there. Moving on at number 6, we have Bedrock City. Who here grew up watching the Flintstones? Man, that is such a classic cartoon. Back in the 70s, a Flintstones themed amusement park was opened in Williams, Arizona. It had rides such as a giant brontosaurus shaped slide, character statues, and a Flintstones themed diner. It also had a campground if you wanted to stay overnight. But recently the park changed owners, and well, the new owner had new plans for the park. The park was recently closed just last year, and now this owner plans to make it into a new attraction called Raptor Ranch. Can't lie, it sounds pretty cool. But for now, the park is abandoned and all that's left is a cutout of Wilma standing near the entrance. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with Hobbiton. Hobbiton was an amusement park centering around J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings. Now, you think that this park would be a huge success since the books were, but nope. It wasn't. Built in the 1970s, this attraction didn't have any rides or games, but instead it was more of like a nature walk, where you could just walk through scenes from the book. And I think that one of the reasons why this park failed was because people want rides and games, something to, like interact with. At this park, you would walk through the story of Bilbo Baggins, and each set had a voice box that would tell you what was going on in the scene that you were viewing. But it was a failed project and ended up closing in 2009. But if you pass by the area, you can still see a sculpture of Gandalf at the door of Bilbo Baggins' Hobbit hole. Coming in at number 4, we have Chippewa Lake Amusement Park. This amusement park was operational for 100 years before closing down. It opened in 1878 and was the hotspot for family fun. In fact, its Ferris wheel was said to be the fastest Ferris wheel in America. I don't know if that's really an accomplishment though, like I can just feel the nausea just thinking about it. Sadly, the park closed down in 1978 because of low attendance. The park was left untouched for quite some time. Then in 2008, a fire destroyed many of the structures. The rest of the structures were demolished that same year. But people really need to stop burning down abandoned amusement parks. In our 3rd spot, we have Prehistoric Forest. This amusement park had everything you could ever ask for. They had a water slide, a waterfall, a smoking volcano, and dinosaurs. Lots and lots of dinosaurs. Built in 1963, this park was meant to mix fun with education. The park was divided into 3 areas. First, you had a safari train ride that would take you through the woods filled with 70 statues of dinosaurs and other prehistoric creatures. Then you had a walking tour led by a guide, and you would learn more about the creatures. Lastly, there was another train which took you through the land of the leprechaun. I know, kinda seems weird, like what do dinosaurs and leprechauns have in common? But this taught you legends from early Irish settlers of the area. The park even had a fossil digging pit, which is really cool. I would have loved that. And entry back in 1981 was only $2.75 for an adult and $1.75 for a kid. Man, I wish that's how cheap Disney's tickets were, because if that was the case, I'd be going like every month. Unfortunately, this park closed in 1999. In our 2nd spot, we have Lincoln Park, and I'm not talking about the band here, or an amusement park based on the band. Lincoln Park was an amusement park located between New Bedford and Fall River in Massachusetts. In 1894, the Union Street Railway Company created Lincoln Park to connect Fall River to New Bedford. Lincoln Park was at the end of the trolley line and was originally created as a picnic park. It had picnic tables, a playground, and some grills to make your own food. Eventually, it transformed into an amusement park. It was originally named Midway Park or Westport Park, but was later changed to Lincoln Park. This park was known for its ride, the Comet, which was a 300-foot-long wooden roller coaster. But in 1986, a fatal accident occurred on this roller coaster, which kind of scared a lot of people, and they're like, is it really as safe as you claim it to be? Then in 1987, another accident occurred on another roller coaster, but thankfully this time no one was injured. But the park was closed in 1987. Then in the 1990s, a series of fires destroyed 90% of the park and the rides. What's with all these parks catching on fire? Like seriously, Smokey the Bear is going to find out. And And in our number 1 spot, we have Lake Shawnee. This is one amusement park that does not have a child-friendly past. Apparently, the park was built on the site of the Clay family massacre. Basically, members of a family were kidnapped and killed on the land. Whoever thought it was a good spot for an amusement park should have been fired. The park opened in 1926 and was rumored to be haunted. After the death of 2 park guests, the park closed in 1966. Now it's said that the ghosts of the park's victims can be seen there at night.